Well, hey, happy Wednesday, Tyler Street Youth. Pastor Rudy here again with part, 7 of our Philippians series. I never thought when I started this 7 weeks ago that we would still be in quarantine 7 weeks from now. But here we are. And you know, it's really just my heart. I want to give you guys a video every week just to keep you thinking, keep you focused on the scriptures, and keep giving yourself a challenge to get closer to God. But I know nothing compares to being with each other and having fun together, being in our youth group, and being with the people that we love. But that's coming soon. Prayerfully by June-ish, we'll be able to get back together and start having youth group again. But until then, we'll keep going through Philippians. And then in 2 weeks, when this series is over, if we're still in quarantine, I'm going to launch into something new for us, and we'll keep continuing to grow together. Well, today we're going into chapter 4, which is one of the most important, it's one of the most famous portions of scripture in the Bible, in the New Testament, and there's so much great encouragement that we find in there. I mean, encouragement for some of the worst times of our lives, some encouragement that can help us get us through some of the worst situations that we will ever face in life. And I remember a story from an old hymn. It's called "It Is Well With My Soul." It was written by a guy named Horatio Spafford, and this was way back in the early 1900s. And he was a lawyer and a real estate agent in Chicago. But during the early 1900s, there was a great Chicago fire that came through, wiped out all of his property. So they lost all of their money in their real estate, all their investments, all the money they had basically for the rest of their lives was gone in a fire. Then shortly after that, one of his, I think, 6 kids, his only son, actually died of pneumonia right after that fire. So here you have a family that lost all their money. Their son, their only son, passed away due to pneumonia and illness. And so they were kind of just racked with sadness and grief. And the dad, Horatio, decided we need to go on a vacation just to get away from it all, clear our minds, have some fun, and just kind of heal our hearts during this time. So they went to the shore, and they were going to go to Europe and go onto a ship at that time. You could fly around and so forth at that time. So as they're about to board the ship, he gets an urgent message from the office. Still a lawyer, and he needed to go back and handle business. And so he says, you guys go ahead, go start having fun. He said that to his wife and I believe his 4 daughters. He says, go on, start without me. I'll be on the next boat and I'll meet you guys there. And just go ahead and start having fun. He went to the office, took care of business. But halfway through, his wife and his daughters were in the middle of the Atlantic, and another vessel came and hit theirs. And during that accident, all 4 of his daughters were drowned. His wife survived, and she was picked up by another vessel, and she landed in Wales, and she sent a telegram to her husband and said, we basically lost our entire family. I alone have survived. What in the world do I do? So he rushed, got onto the very next ship that he could, jumped on there, and halfway through the voyage, the captain stopped the ship and said, Mr. Spafford, this is the exact spot that your family died. And I just, in honor and respect to your family, wanted to give you a moment of silence. And as he stood there on the bow, overlooking the waters that took the lives of his remaining children, it was there that he wrote that hymn, "It Is Well With My Soul." So when I heard this story for the first time, all I could think of was, how can you write such beautiful words of "It is well with my soul," a song that many people have sung for dozens and dozens of years, when you're in the moment of grieving that you're never going to see your children again. And the only way that I can say that he got through that was the power of the love and the grace and the blessing of God. If you're not 100% connected with God, if you don't have an intimate relationship with him, when bad things come our way, we're going to fall apart. But if God is alive and vibrant in you, when you face difficult things, even the death of somebody in the family, you're going to have a strength that's supernatural that doesn't even come for you. And so Paul gives us some encouragement. I'm going to open up my laptop here. I don't have my Bible on me. And I want to read to you a few verses in Philippians chapter 4. It's going to be verses 4 through 9. It says, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. So Paul's saying rejoice always. If you just try to apply that one scripture to your life, you probably failed a bunch of times like I have. Rejoice always. When you lose a family member, when your parents lose their job, when you have to move to a different state, all kinds of crazy things can happen. We still need to rejoice. Verse 5 says, let your gentle spirit be known to all men. The Lord is near. And check this out, verse 6. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all comprehension, will guard your hearts and your minds in Jesus Christ. Finally, brethren, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is of good repute, if there's any excellence and if anything worthy of praise, dwell. That means think on these things. Always dwell. Think on these things. The things you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, practice these things, and the God of peace will be with you. I got to preach this past Sunday for our church, and one of the points I made at the very end was that we need to rise above all the fear that we're facing right now. We need to have more faith than we have fear. The next question is, well, how do we do that? How do I be like Paul, who said, rejoice always and dwell on all these lovely things and think about all these wonderful, true things that God gives to us? How do I let my gentle spirit be made known to all men? And this is kind of a formula. It shouldn't be a formula, but I can't think of a better word. And that is, in order to have good faith, faith comes from trust. Trust comes from rest. Rest comes from worship. So don't just try to go from fear to faith. Don't just try to go from sadness and grief, depression, anxiety, and just like that have all the faith in the world. It's a process. And that process begins with worship. So today, if you're dealing with anxiety, depression, if you're dealing with bad thoughts, if you're thinking of sad thoughts, number one, talk to us. I mean, we're here for you guys. We would love to pray with you and talk with you and give you advice through that. But the other thing is worship. Find a way that you can worship God, whether through putting worship music on your phone, whether it means reading a couple of scriptures, whether that means looking up a Bible study online, whether that just means crying out to God and being real with your emotions. Worship Him. Because when you worship, you get rest. Like when you have a bad dream or when you're a little kid and you would run into mom and dad's bed and all that fear is gone. Rest comes when we can worship and put our focus on what we should be trusting, which is God. And then when you can trust God, you can get faith. Faith in the original Greek word in the Bible, the definition of faith is a conviction of truth. That means you're so convinced of the truth of who God is, what He will do for you, how He's always been for you, that of course I believe that what He says is true. I have faith. I know it's going to happen because God said it. And we get there through a process. And so this week I want to challenge you. See what's really going on in your heart and communicate that to God. Cry out to God with whatever you're facing in your heart. Good, bad, ugly, mad, sad. Whatever's in your heart, let it be known to God. Even though He knows everything, He wants His child to be able to speak to Him and say help. Because God can't go past your free will. God won't force you to do anything. But if you open your heart to Him, He can begin to speak to you. He can begin to move, and you're going to find yourself in a place of rest. Then you can move to trust and to faith. So go on that journey this week. If you need any advice, let us know. But I challenge you to just move towards that direction of finding greater faith because you have greater worship. Well, God bless you, kids. And again, we can't wait to see you again. And we're here for you. Please reach out to us if you need anything. But we'll be praying for you, and we miss you. Have a great week.